So thank you everyone for joining us today for the Wade Institute's Ask Me Anything on the AI Conundrum. We've got about 45 minutes for this conversation. Of course, 45 minutes is not long enough to adequately explore the whole conundrum that is AI, but we're going to give it a good shot in the short amount of time that we do have. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm Jess Christiansen-Franks. I'm the Managing Director at the Wade Institute, and we've got our fabulous guest, Georgie Healy, on the call, who is an AI aficionado with many, many different content channels teaching the world about the powers of AI. So we absolutely couldn't do a conversation like this without the likes of Georgie. And I'll have Georgie introduce herself to the virtual room in just a moment. But the reason for hosting this event, it not only is because anytime we run anything with AI in the title these days, it just becomes the single most clicked on link that we have or registered event that we have. And so it's quite clear that AI is on everybody's minds and people want to talk about it and hear about it. But the specific catalyst and the reason that Wade has been working with Georgie across the last couple of months is that we've now released a series of new programs in 2026 where we're trialing a 3-day format. Many of our programs, particularly say the VC Catalyst course, have been really intensive long form programs. And we see that there's a lot of people that are interested in new and emerging topics like AI or scaling the operations of growing companies or the entrepreneur's mindset, these other entrepreneur adjacent concepts. And so we've released a series of 3-day programs, which is sort of easier to fit in your calendar. And one of them is titled the AI Conundrum. And Georgie is the facilitator and co-designer of that program. And that program is running in July. And so as we do with all our programs before they run, is we have an Ask Me Anything session like this, where we invite people that are interested in the topic, may or may not be interested in the program itself, but bring the experts together and talk through some of the concepts from that course and invite you as the audience to ask us questions. So it's really key. And what we'll be doing as part of the AI Conundrum program is everybody that registers for the program will speak to us beforehand to tell us what they're grappling with AI in their businesses, so that Georgie and the team can really appropriately tailor exactly what we cover in that program based on the business use cases that you all are grappling with. This day now is also a chance for us to do that. So I will be inviting all of you to ask questions as we go, and we'll use the chat to do that too. I'm not very good at reading the chat whilst facilitating, so I invite you to put up your hand with your little virtual hand, because I think I get an audio notice if that happens, or I invite one of my team members to interrupt me and tell me that there's a question in the chat. So I'll just flag that now. Often the Wade team are all in the same room together when they have these, but today we're not. Without further ado, I will kick us off. Are we pinned on the chat? I'm not sure if I'm not seeing the right view. Can everyone see me and Georgie? Or are we
Yes, you
seeing?
are, Jess.
Great. Okay. I'm obviously just seeing a mixed view of everyone because I don't know how to use Zoom. All right, so I'll kick us off, Georgie. I'm going to just ask you to introduce yourself first, please, particularly from the perspective of how did you come to be one of Australia's most well-known AI evangelists? You have an enormous audience of people that love coming and hearing your points of view and the interviews that you bring together. What's your background and what brought you to this point of being at the center of the AI conversation?
Thanks so much, Jess. I'm so happy to be here. Uh, I've been working in tech for 15 years. My undergraduate degree was in engineering. It was very funny. I went from an all-girls school and then it kind of felt like I moved into an all-boys school. But I love technology, always have. And, this AI time kind of feels like I'm a big fantasy nerd. It kind of feels like getting the Hogwarts letter in Harry Potter, and things are magic now. Like things that in 15 years working in tech, we thought we could do. We thought we could let technology help us and save us, 30% of our day. And there were a lot of promises that came and went. And with AI, almost from the get-go, many of us in the industry were like, oh my goodness, it's happening. This is it. So I've been really passionate about AI probably since GPT came out, the chat interface actually allowing us to do things like this. My most recent role was at Google running the AI accelerator there. And I've just been really passionate about AI literacy and helping people outside of tech, which is the vast majority of the population, get the benefits as well.
And so when the vast majority of the population are speaking to you, as in the people that aren't necessarily inside the tent of AI and understanding what's possible at that new frontier, when they speak to you about what it is and why it's valuable, because as you know, let's be honest, a lot of fear and concern and almost concern about the existential threat of AI and how it's changing our economy very acutely, but also chronically over time. How do you explain to those people where AI genuinely does and doesn't create value? How do you see that picture of value creation with AI?
Yeah, the joy of working independently now is I also hold both truths, and I can be really honest about that, Jess. Like when working at a big tech company, of course you've got to be careful about the messaging. But I'm online. I share things online that are nuanced. I get guests on my podcast that are nuanced and care about ethics or care about safety and security. And I think it's okay to have that nuance and that conversation. Where I see value in AI and where my most prestigious guests see value is in the work that we don't actually want to do and doesn't actually help people. Reading endless documentation to find the nuggets of insights. But where the human comes in is the judgment and the discussion and the conversation. People at the end of the day want to speak to a real human when thinking about decision making and thinking about, where to go forward. So, big picture, like reading emails, reading documentation, analyzing data. Kind of, when I got a master's of data analytics, I thought that that would be a skill set. And frankly, I don't really need it as much anymore because that is just dry work that doesn't need to be done by a human, and you can be freed up to do more fun and strategic work.
But that's often one of the lures or the challenges of AI, isn't it? That because it does appear that it can do, especially with agents and deploying agents, you can uh, appear to have an agent do an end-to-end process. You know, I want a marketing strategy. And so you put in a little bit about your business, and even without much prompting, it can come up with a marketing strategy that on the surface, without deep human thought, can look to be super appropriate. But complex things like marketing strategies should have many steps of thinking and analysis and brainstorming and coalescing of ideas. And so it's tempting though as the human to not use the AI as the crutch, but to use it to fill out the whole process. How do how much I'm very worried about that trap. How do you see that? Are you more optimistic, or do you think we really have to help teach people to have those guardrails to make sure there's human judgment in the right places in those end-to-end processes?
Oh, Jess, it's such a great topic because we will see this stuff all over the internet. We will see people clearly using AI, and there's the telltale signs of AI use. And it's in the wording, it's in the M dashes, it's in the punctuation, and immediately people start discrediting the person that wrote it or shared it as not thinking about it themselves. And that's
Mm.
a real trap because yes, you saved time if you didn't write it, but you lost credibility in the process. And many of the people on the call will probably have built up the skills to do things from scratch, but especially if it's people that are coming straight out of university and using the tools from the get-go, they're not learning that ability to make judgments. And so what I always say is, You can use AI as a thought partner, as a business partner, as someone you can write your ideas, share them with AI to get feedback on it. But that final product should never be AI written. And frankly, you can get yourself into hot water very easily. I've seen it happen many times before. Hey, Jess, you wrote this piece. What did you mean when you said that? And it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because because AI is the ultimate executor, and quality execution, like being able to write a really concise email about a complex problem, or put together a compelling pitch deck, or even write a LinkedIn post, they were all execution exercises that demonstrated your ability to think well. Whereas now you need the ability to think well, of course, but that those artifacts are no longer a signal of being able to think well. My husband is a commercial photographer. This is a terrible time in the economy to be a commercial photographer, is a hot tip for anyone. And he was writing a proposal last night. He used to be very, very good at putting together these incredibly compelling, essentially pitch decks for his work. And now no one even opens them anymore because everyone just assumes they're AI. So this thing that used to be his advantage, his ability to distill the client's brief into something visual and compelling and different from everybody else, no longer sets him aside in the field. And he's saying, like, everyone thinks I'm using AI, but I'm not. Should I be writing on this? This isn't AI. But actually the point seems to be that the market no longer care if you have the skill of being able to distill, because the AI will do that anyway. So what is
That was
valued is different.
beautifully said. Yeah, I see this online all the time. Anyone that's got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, what have you, photographers that would take beautiful photographs in the past are accused of AI now. And it's not said with like neutral stance, it's said with anger.
Mm.
This is AI. And it has eroded a lot of trust. So what I do things that don't scale easily. My newsletter, my podcast, when we're writing this AI conundrum piece together, if people on the call could see behind the scenes how much just old fashioned sitting down, it's messy, it starts as a draft, it evolves over time, and we edit it, and it's not, we don't start with AI, we just don't, because at the end of the day, it needs to be something that you stand for and you believe in. And if
Mm.
someone has a different point of view, you can have that conversation. And I just don't think you can do that with AI at the get-go.
That's interesting. And so that opens up an obvious next question to me, which is, if AI allows us to execute fast and sort of throughput more thinking in a day, in a way, does that mean that more use of AI always means better outcomes? Should every business therefore be thinking, we're already behind if we're not really using AI to shortcut and get rid of, in your words, the work that people don't want to do?
It's a great question, because I won't sugarcoat it. If you say, "Oh, we're not using AI as a company," people will assume that it's because you're behind the times. You're
Mm.
not reading the room. AI is here. It's like saying we're not using internet as a
Mm.
company. We don't have Wi-Fi as a company. AI is increasingly becoming table stakes. And that is the way that the current puck is moving. Whether Gen Zs or millennials or people online like it or not, unfortunately, it's here. It's just not going anywhere. That said, plonking the AI label on something is just not the right approach. It's business first, tech second. What is
Mm.
the business problems we are trying to solve? How can AI genuinely help it? Yesterday, I was at a tech event. The company Miro. It's like an online whiteboard, but they don't want you to call it a whiteboard. But that is essentially what it is. And I had comments in my LinkedIn post saying, I nearly cancelled my Miro subscription because they plonked AI into it. I liked it before it had AI. They added all these connectors with all these other tools. It became complex and clunky, and I hated it. But then Miro got that feedback and has iterated, made it more streamlined. And now it's adding value, and people are re-signing back up for the product. So they loved it pre-AI. They hated it in that early implementation stage. But now that Miro have really listened to customer feedback of what AI is useful for example, because it's a big online whiteboard, it's hard to find things. With AI, you can say, I'm looking for this in this huge whiteboard, help me to find it. People love that now. Business problems first, then tech second.
Mm. So that's a really good segue into my next question, which is, when we sat down to build the AI conundrum, and we'd heard from, done a lot of market research about what corporates and growing businesses are grappling with when it comes to AI. What seemed to be the central tension, and what we sat down with you to build out the program around, was around the difference between the productivity gains that people know, if I can save 5 hours a week of checking emails, that's going to give me 5 more productive hours back in my week. Hey, if I multiply that across a workforce, maybe we can reduce headcount and costs out. And that does tend to be how it's playing out over time. People are either letting teams go, or we're seeing share prices increase in the stock market when they have announced headcount drops, which is a bit of a pattern at the moment. But the conundrum here is that those productivity gains are short-lived. They perhaps undercut your ability to grow. And so how do you think about the real organizational value that can be gained beyond just costs down? Because cost down is a real gain too.
Yeah, it's short-termist thinking, in my opinion, Jess. We cut headcount. Of course, there's an immediate cost savings in the quarterly results or the P&L. And frankly, what we've noticed in market is that they are not actually replacing these people with AI, and this is a term called AI washing. So we've had to cut 30%, and we've increased productivity because we're using AI. And then you ask the people that have stayed at those companies, we're not using AI. We're not using any tools in a meaningful way. That was, either there was overhiring during COVID, like pandemic overhiring, and now they're using AI as a terminology. And no wonder people are starting to hate AI in the news, because it's coming with redundancy headline and coupled with that. And then ultimately, it's early days, but it looks like those companies will possibly need to rehire again later when they realize, oh my goodness, AI didn't solve every single problem. We used it as a short-termist cut, cost-effective cut, and long-term, we're not able to grow, to your point, Jess. We're not able to actually listen to customers and answer the customers and navigate this time. Like with Miro, when they clearly had the capacity and the personnel to evolve their product when they got customer feedback. You need people there to listen and digest and judge and inform the next product iteration.
I think a lot about in my startup, which was a data business, we took years to build out really viable proof of concepts because it was a really complex data problem. And of course, as you said, Georgie, nothing solves a complex data problem
Right.
quite like AI, right? And so the years of R&D we put into building out not just the data engine itself, but also the trickiest part was the interface, the software we had to put on top of the data to make it accessible. And there's a lot of talk now about SaaS-pocalypse, right? Is SaaS dead? Is there people that are building software companies, should they just be giving it up and making way for AI? You're shaking your head. Where do you fall on that? I say
Oh,
yes.
I
I say
ask
give it up. Just
every
do
guest
AI.
of my podcast, is the SaaSpocalypse real? Is
Right.
it the beginning of the SaaSpocalypse? Are we in the end of it? Is that it? And, the short answer is, of course, everyone has a different opinion on this. I think my opinion is, if it is a regulatory landscape, 100% that is strong, that's powerful, that's got a moat. Startups like Heidi Health use AI as a transcript, but then they've got a SaaS platform that is what makes them powerful, because you can use AI to record in any platform. That's really easy. It's their SaaS platform that make them a compelling business. So in the regulatory landscape, SaaS is great, fine. I do think that bringing up any kind of, and for listeners, software as a service, aka your internet first and you sell your business purely online. This was what all investors in the last few years put all their money into. Essentially, they wanted online businesses. The margins were great. You could make a fortune with these businesses. And the reason why AI is making that less compelling is because you can launch a website without being an engineer now, without a software engineering degree, without coding skills. My personal website, if anyone wants to look at it, looks so professional and flash, and I did it with a vibe coding tool. So if you're a SaaS business, if you're an online first business, you are competing with people with no tech skills.
Mm.
And so that is why people are talking about this SaaS apocalypse. I can copy your website, Jess. I could copy your entire business that you created a few years ago. Who wins in this time? Who backs these companies in this time? And short answer is we're going to see, but I believe it will be people back people. People pay for the person behind the business. If people like Jess and her mission and what she stands for, and the business solves a problem, and it happens to be a SaaS company, people will still buy her product. But if she's
Mm.
got no face behind it, a landing page just doesn't have the same cachet as it would have a few years ago.
Mm. What I um is on my mind when I think back about what I would have done as a founder faced with AI at the maturity that it is now. And incidentally, we sold the business and our business was infinitely acquirable because we were sold to REA Group, because the likes of REA Group were looking for as much proprietary data as they could possibly have because of AI. And so because of AI, we became really acquirable. And so so we sold it really the right time. But I often wonder at 2 in the morning when I'm lying awake at night, what if we hadn't sold? What might we have done? And our whole operations of our company, we'd spent 7 years because, and it really strikes me, a lot of Australian businesses would be faced with this. We were trying to conserve as much money as possible, of course, in a really complex technical business. And so the entire operations of my company, including everybody's job descriptions and how we ran our weekly, daily meetings, were designed around how to streamline the complexity of our execution. We ran very strict, Scrum processes to make sure we picked one hypothesis, we delivered in 2 week sprints, we would test them. And so we were on pretty fast iteration cycles of like 2 weeks between releases. And that's pretty fast for a data business. But if we could suddenly execute anything on any given day, my business would have stopped working because we wouldn't have any of the systems in place. We almost would have had to completely clean out the staff team and start again to be able to actually use AI. And when it did come onto the scene, we looked at it and said, how could we be using this? But we weren't thinking big picture enough. What we should have been thinking, or we could have been thinking, was let's get rid of our software interface and just put an AI agent on top of our data and see what people do with it, right? And stop trying to build a visualization interface for users where we're guessing what they want. And so we hear this now at the Wade Institute from a lot of investors, is they're now saying it is much easier to invest in a very small business that's only 2, 3 highly skilled people that are really attuned with the market than it is to invest in a 30-person business who can't properly adapt to AI because they have all of this legacy operation.
It 100% makes sense because, like, one of the companies I worked at was Ford Automotive in the UK. They had systems from the 80s, that black screen with the green font, because supply chain and the way it touched so many parts of the puzzle from the planning stage of a vehicle line all the way to production. You can't just lift and shift legacy software that easily. And for the entire global business to remove this software that had existed literally since the 80s was just like a thing that they kept being like, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. Whereas if you're AI native or AI first, what we called companies at Google, yeah, it was exactly like you say, just 2 people both got the vision, both in the same mindset, using AI from day one. You can stand up an idea really quickly and see if you've got customer traction, and then take it from there. Do we grow the team? Do we have capacity to go global? That 0 to 1 stage with AI, I wish it existed when I started an app and spent all this money on the app and all this capital into something that needed to be so technical. And I actually didn't know if it had customers until I built the app, and that's a little bit late. So now companies can really test and iterate and do micro campaigns and tests as a bigger organization as well. Will this work? Yes or no? You can get that response a lot quicker.
And that's again, perhaps not to overuse the word, but it is in the title of the program. That's the conundrum, right? Is that most businesses that are experimenting in that 0 to 1 phase are only the small businesses. And usually there's almost this sort of one directional myth of you've reached product market fit and then you're on your way. But now what is
Easy.
product market fit is continually changing. Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed this, Jess, but I feel like people are becoming more entrepreneurial in general. And I am noticing, because I speak to people that work at Commonwealth Bank and large enterprises, and increasingly even if their company is not embracing AI, they might have their own personal laptop with their own personal suite of tools, or they're trying to create their own website or a little project. And I don't mean little project, it could just be an experimental project. And I'm noticing people are playing more using AI, because that friction of, oh my God, I can't code a website, this is too hard, forget about it. A lot of those barriers are dropping, and I'm genuinely inspired by seeing the projects people send me on LinkedIn. Built this on the weekend, what do you think of this? Got stuck here. And so I'd encourage people, even if your business is not feeling the most innovative, you're welcome to try these little projects on the side, and you never know, it could be your next venture.
And this was one of the key points you and I discussed in the last time we got together, which really has stuck with me and I think might be quite uncomfortable for a lot of people. You shared the point of view that the people that will win in an AI world are the ones that will roll up their sleeves and use AI for execution. But the reality is, in many businesses, the people that are the decision makers have long departed the execution, right? And their teams are doing the spinning up the proof of concepts and doing all of those things. And that either those people need to get ready to execute again and hopefully find that creativity and that joy in trialing things and rolling up their sleeves, or move over for the people that do.
Agree with this. I also notice trends in different groups. I'm noticing that women think that AI is just for technical people. Like, not all women, obviously, but I'm not an engineer. I don't think this is for me. I wasn't invited to the party. Or generations that never needed to use technology in a meaningful way. I think of my father, who has a PhD and is incredibly brilliant, but he just one of those people, "Oh, I just don't really use my phone." And like, this is one of those technologies where it's like, unfortunately, like, you cannot navigate your business in a time where you seriously misunderstand a technology. But it's easier than ever, because most AI is meant to be English as a first language, not Python, not C++, not these sophisticated coding networks. It's English. And most AI is that simple. It really is. It's just a muscle of getting used to using it. I strongly
Mhm.
feel that.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's some great questions coming in, so I'm going to throw to some of them. I'll read the short ones out, but there's a couple of long ones, and I will be asking the authors of the long questions to read their own question out. Rob, I'm going to go to your question first. What advice can you give to business owners that are suffering from AI analysis paralysis, i.e., they don't want to commit to tools or process change because things are improving and changing so quickly?
Oh, Rob, what a great question.
Yeah.
Actually, when we were designing the program, one of the fundamental questions we were asking ourselves and, talked about as a group is how much do we talk about actual tooling? Because it migrates so quickly. It's a great point. Fable was here a second ago. It's gone.
Mm.
Imagine we had a whole 2 hours on Fable. This stuff happens so much. My short answer is you don't have to be across every single tool if you don't want to. If you don't get a joy using ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and using the same prompt across all three, no worries. If you don't want to use every tool that you hear about, no worries. Short answer quickly is use one of those three. Use an LLM like Claude or ChatGPT, because the more information into one system, the more it understands you and your preferences, and it starts to feel like a real business partner. If you use all of them interchangeably, you get less of that penetration. My second thing is in the program, we really want to mitigate against downside risk. We want to really make sure that a big catastrophe doesn't happen with AI. That is really important. That is the thing that people are not talking about enough. And that's what's going to make the headline news, not, oh, Jess doesn't use Whisperflow. Oh, that's the worst thing about it. No, it's Jess used her enterprise AI and put this incredibly sensitive company
Hang
information
on. No,
that
she didn't. She didn't.
she never did this. She never would do
But
this
I did
because
hear
she,
of someone that did that. So
yeah, it can
yeah, yeah,
happen.
yeah,
But that's what we want to mitigate against.
yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. And so, what I observe as well, if I can ask an extension to that question, is perhaps unlike any other business tech, except maybe mobile phones, AI is people are introduced to it first as a consumer. Like they tend to use it personally first and then form a view on what it is and what it's good for, adopt it in a personal capacity, perhaps to support their job, but not because their employer gave it to them. And sometimes even though their employer said you can't use it, and then they bring it into the workplace. But what that means is that in any given team of people, they're all going to have a starting point of what it is that's totally different from each other because it's just based on. So that's an additional business tool hurdle that most other business tools don't have. If you're rolling out a CRM into your company, usually the staff don't necessarily already been using one personally on the side and have a very strong view of how to do it. So people, you might have a whole team using Claude, but if they're all using it in a totally different way with totally different understandings of context windows and what's appropriate, what's not, which functionality is to use, that's a very different adoption hurdle.
Yeah, exactly right. I remember at Google, Gemini is their LLM. Obviously, we use all Google products at Google and they're fantastic. Google invented AI essentially. So as we understand in the transformer. But most people that were really, really interested in tech want to use the latest and greatest model. So we were all using our personal computers and using ChatGPT when that was the most popular and most advanced tool. And unfortunately, that there's no way to tell people they're not allowed to advance themselves in that way. But yeah, it does create yeah, like hurdles, like you said, Jess, but it's just part of it. Some people are going to be more motivated to take the tools to the next level, and some people are going to just do the bare minimum as part of their job, and they will use whatever that enterprise AI is. And you'll encounter all sorts within a large business.
All right, I'm just scrolling through the questions. I'm going to ask someone to speak to them. David Cordova, are you still on the call? If you are, do you want to ask your question to Georgie?
David said earlier that he would have to leave
Oh,
early.
he
Yes,
did?
so he's
Okay.
probably gone.
All right, sorry. Does anyone feel free to put up your hand if you've got a question now? And I'm going through the chat to see. Johan, do you want to share your question with the group? I've seen you've just popped one in.
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you.
So I think the question here is there's one context where in order for general purpose agents to assist business owners, there is a centralization of information into some location, and then agents which are developed on top of that, and negate the need to do information exchange between different domains, right? There's a second context where there's sort of a more drive for domain specialization in terms of data storage and AI agents, which are specific to individual domain context, and then have interchange of agent interactivity, so agent input and output, and then agents talking to agents. Are you seeing any trends in terms of which of those two design paradigms is more common?
Oh, a nice technical question, Johan. I have spoken to companies like Stripe, the AI, like the payments company, and they are working closely with OpenAI, with agent-to-agent discussions, because OpenAI has the consumer chat. I'm asking a question about what bed linen I should buy for this weirdly shaped bed. And then Stripe will integrate with those ads that OpenAI are implementing a way to pay within the window. So it's kind of a handover process from those two agents. This stuff is really in its infancy still. Most agentic, like even interviewing the VP of Dropbox, they have agents, Salesforce have agents, but it feels very much still in the sandbox of data that an agent is allowed to play with, and that agentic harness of what rules apply there. Commonwealth Bank does this as well. And very quickly they have a human in the loop trigger. And that is quite early in the piece still. I feel like people are talking about agentic usage a lot for marketing reasons, and it looks great. But I think people are still quite reticent to let agents fully autonomously do the end-to-end process. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I think on the application side, but not necessarily on what back end is necessary to support that.
Yeah, that might be a slightly out of my technical remit, but that is what I hear my more technical guests say that they're using agents for. But yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Rob, we'll go to you. You've put a couple of questions in the chat and got your hand up there. Oh, you're on mute. There we go. Gotcha.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
All right,
Thanks.
great. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Georgie. Mine's very much a sort of cottage industry level question. So I'm doing some work with local government, consultancy work with local government, and it's focused on small businesses in the area, and trying to work out how we can help small businesses take some advantages of AI. Now, they're typically very small, many of them owner-operators, sole owner type businesses. They're not very techy in their thinking. They don't have a lot of money to invest. There's quite a bit of suspicion about AI. So there's sort of lots of barriers there, but I still see opportunities for people to take advantage of, for example, using LLMs to develop marketing programs and so forth. Anyway, I'll put myself aside. Georgie, any suggestions about particular tools that would be useful to a small business in an area that they don't spend a lot of money, but they want to get some advantage out of AI?
Oh, I love this question, Rob, and what an amazing space to be supporting in. My uncle is an ex-architect. He's retired years ago, and what he started using ChatGPT for is helping small businesses like cafes. He's a paddleboarder, so like small paddleboarder communities with their marketing, and he offers to do it for them. He just uses OpenAI with the prompt, with the brief, and he's created kind of carousel images with everything that's required on them. My personal take, that's what he does with those industries. My personal take too is creating them a website or a landing page is an amazing service that takes so much less time than you think it will. I use Lovable, and you literally prompt what you want it to look like, the colors. It's a $30 a month subscription, and you can attach it to a domain that you can for sure pay for, which isn't expensive. And then you just cancel the $30 a month subscription once you're happy with the website. So that's what I did. I paid for the $30 a month website, created the website, and then stopped paying $30 a month. It's very easy to unsubscribe. So those are two things that you could really do to make them show up online more and create that presence.
Terrific. Yeah. Thanks, Georgie.
There's a comment that Damien made earlier as well, which I think is really relevant for what Rob's talking about. And Damien said that his prediction is that AI agents for specific roles, such as bookkeeping, will become the new product sold for business and personal use. The moat is who can make the best AI agent for that role. And that what Rob's question brings up for me is, if someone is a small business and they don't have a lot of time to be sitting around researching and playing, should they be looking for the best pre-configured AI agent to solve the thing for them? Like, go to the buy an AI that is the marketing collateral AI, or do they teach Claude how to do it, or they teach ChatGPT how to do it? And so do you go to the root LLM and set it up for yourself, or buy the intermediary tool? I mean, even that, I feel AI decision paralysis around that. What do you think about that, Georgie?
Rob, please. So again, just from where I'm working at the moment, so with things like bookkeeping, I think you're better off going with an off-the-shelf product, Xero or something like that, rather than trying to create it yourself. You could theoretically create your own bespoke bookkeeping tool, but there's kind of a bit of work in that, and all of the ways in which something like Xero interacts with your own bank account and manages all of your billing and so forth. It's just a much better product to buy that than to try and create your own. It's more in the sorts of things that Georgie was saying, which is creating a really slick website that's constantly updating and doing that yourself without having to pay someone else, a developer, to do that for you. And so you end up actually saving a lot of money over time, and it can be also more. It can evolve much more quickly. Localized marketing. And so one of the things I'm looking at is for these businesses to get a better handle on their demographics, which have changed quite a bit recently in this particular suburb. And so therefore adjusting how they market and present themselves to the demographic changes that have happened recently and are continuing to happen. And so trying to use AI tools to help them skill up in the marketing and communication areas is a really obvious area for these small businesses.
I love it. And do you know what I do for my own website? After I've created it, I ask Claude to review it. So if you want to be really techie about it, in Chrome, in your internet browser Chrome, you can have a Claude extension. It can look at your page for you, and you just type in the chatbot, analyze my website. I had the most sophisticated founders in the Google program, and they assume that customers are going to click here, scroll there, do this. And that's not what people would do when they would open the website. They're like, where's the photo? Where's the about page? Why is it so hard to find your contact details? You can use AI to really give you some brutal feedback on your existing websites right now and say, help me make this better for SEO. Help me make this more compelling. Have I answered the right questions? It sounds like a lot of work, and you could smash it out in an evening. I'm not kidding.
All right, well, that brings us just about to time. And thank you, everyone, for the great questions. And obviously, this is really just the beginning of the conversation. Wade's going to be hosting a lot of conversations like this across the coming weeks and months. Georgie and I dove into some of these issues in more detail a couple of weeks back in a podcast episode between she and I that'll go live later this week or next week. So we'll make sure you'll get a link to that when it goes live. And if you or anyone you know wants to go into learn more about this, the AI Conundrum program is running next month, where we'll dive into it. And it really is around going into some of these issues, thinking about AI as a tool, but also as a strategy, but providing a really practical framework for how any business leader, it's not just startups, but any business leader at any stage can evaluate and assess the AI opportunities for them and think really strategically about AI for growth, not just AI for cutting costs. So thanks everyone for joining us. All the information, including the recordings today, will be shared with you, and please feel free to send this across to, I love the exploding claps as we're talking.
I love the emojis.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Georgie. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rob.
Thank you.